I'm going to introduce you to high-performance computing and the way we are doing it in Europe, with, let's say, all the fun about all the issues in terms of finding the budget to take part in 6 nanometer and very soon in 3 nanometer. As Oliver said, I'm in the silicon industry, let's say, for a while. I've been working in multiple companies, LSI Logic, that ended in Broadcom, Xilinx, that ended in Intel, Elstar, that ended in MediaTek, and I left ST, where I was driving the semiconductor consumer division in 2016 to build this project that I'm going to describe. You may be used to Formula One, and especially in 2 weeks there is a big event in Las Vegas, because they are closing the road for kind of 6 kilometers specific track. What we do in HPC, high performance computing, you can compare this to Formula One. It's very expensive. The last flops per watt we have to save are an incredible cost in front of us, and especially when you do this as a startup, you have big giants which are in this business for a while, Intel, AMD, NVIDIA. So the target is not bad, but that's what makes let's say, our life and our design quite exciting for the close to 170 engineers we have today, and the first design win that I'm going to describe. You know that our, let's say, citizens, we have, let's say, multiple problems to solve. Climate changing, security, energy, health, and you've seen during the COVID, unfortunately, COVID period, that lots of supercomputers and computing bandwidth have been allocated to help find the good vaccine. To solve this, what is needed is big computers. And here we are not talking about one laptop or 2 laptops, something like this. We are talking about huge farms, and especially with what happens and all the buzz in the past months around ChatGPT, HPC dedicated to AI, machine learning, and all the energies which are needed to do it. We are just part of it. The message behind supercomputers, any class of supercomputers for, let's say, massive compute farm with general purpose processor to AI for machine learning inferences are everywhere, and us as citizens, and we'll be back to the, let's say, use case later on, we take benefits of this on a daily basis. So, what is a supercomputer? It's multiple racks like this, so we are talking about hundreds of square meters to host the facilities. Racks are built on blades, and what we do inside there is the microprocessor, which is fueling part of the supercomputers. It's, let's say, around 50% of the value of a supercomputer. Just to talk about business a bit, the average selling price of such a microprocessor, we are talking about a couple $1,000 piece, even, let's say, 30K, 40K for the, let's say, the big one, which are making lots of buzz these days. So the challenge is to design them, and after with our partners to ensure they can aggregate them, manage the power, because an HPC like this, it can consume from 20 to 60 megawatts. That's huge, and even more to come. Manage the air cooling or the water cooling to ensure at the end the HPC will deliver all the throughput. So here we are talking about a very small piece like this, but in an HPC you can have 1K, 50K, even 150,000 processors like this, exactly what they did in Japan. So it's a very, very wide market. We're talking about more than $20 billion in, let's say, 2027. For traditional HPC, we're talking about growth of close to 10% a year. An HPC cost is from, let's say, $500,000 for the small one to 200 million, even 500 million for the equivalent of the French one that will be switched on in 2025 and 2026. And after, for HPC in the cloud, we are talking about systems which are much more cheaper because they are distributed, but see with a growth of 7% a year, so it's not bad, and everything which is related to LLM and AI accounts for 10% of this. So now the challenge in between Europeans is that Europe research is consuming 1/3 of the resources, which is a lot, and the pity is that only 5% of the computing resources are in Europe. So there is a big lag, and if you want to be good in industry in terms of research, you need to have massive computing power on board. So for this, we need processors. We'll see this after. The first point, an European processor, if we can, because today these machines are mainly supplied with US components, was Japanese component in the past, but today it's mainly let's say US components, and we are going to fix this starting, let's say, in 2025. So what EU wanted to do is solve part of this. First, have much more supercomputers in Europe, and second, have them based on European technologies. And that's part of the challenge we are going to describe. So what EU put in place, so-called joint undertaking, so it's a company set up in between different countries. The one we're talking about, so-called EuroHPC, has been set up in September 2018 with more than 8 billion euros of budget. So if you combine this with the budget coming from the member states, which are part of EuroHPC, we're talking about 16 billion euros of budget. And this budget is used to develop the core technologies, to develop part of the chips, and also to set up the first machine, which includes the procurement process. And when we are talking about a machine value which is from 200 to 500 million euros, you can bet that the procurement process based on public tenders is quite complex. So EuroHPC started in 2018. EPI, which is a public research consortium that has been used to develop the first IPs, and you will see after that cycle is coming out of this one, is the tip of the iceberg and one of the elements, so one of the research components which is developing the first elements. So I set up this consortium when I was in Atos Blue just after ST. The consortium ramped up in 2018. And with Cycle and other activities around the consortium, you see the first result out of it, which will be deployed in the open market starting from next year. So Cycle has been set up as a private company, pure private company, because usually there are plenty of misunderstanding that Cycle is a public company, though it's private, so at scale-up stage today, but initiated by Brussels. So the way we did it, and this is our timeline. So EPI, so let's say the first draft for to answer the call, this is coming from June 2017. The consortium started in December 18, so it was 18 months of process. Cycle, the first spin-off, started in June 2019. We started with a very interesting research grant, which was more than 6 million euros to start. So that was very helpful when you start to note this, let's say, this level of budget at the beginning. So thanks to this, we skipped everything which was, let's say, already to love money, seeding round, and Series A. We moved directly to big budget. So thanks to you for this. 2 years after, we went the EIC for the one who are not used to EIC, European Innovation Council. It's a very, very good European tool. Lots of budget, because we are part of the pool of December 2021. At this time, EU distributed 680 million euros to the best European startup. It was 99 startups at this time focused on deep tech, so not only semiconductor, but biotech and all the stuff which are very complex and usually impossible to finance. So it was our first, let's say, line of equity. And if you have, let's say, Frenchies in the room, EIC is at European level, but French Tech is at French level. So French Tech for SaaS, web development, EIC is for deep tech, and part of deep tech is semiconductor. So if you have a startup in mind, think about EIC, because it's a very, very good tool. A couple months later on, we got access to a nice loan from the European Investment Bank, EIP, for 25 million. And we closed a Series A of 90 million euros, which was, in April this year, the second largest Series A even done in France, and one of the largest in Europe. Which means that when you are doing it well, so of course it's lots of work behind, you can have access to budget. Now, of course, it's not enough to develop this class of processor, and we are working on the next step. And the final step, which has been announced last month, we finally got our design win, because Cycle processor will fuel part of the largest European machine, which will be switched off in 2024 and 2025 for the second part. This machine, so-called Jupiter, will be hosted in Jülich in Germany, and will be, since day one, the largest European machine, so exascale. So in a couple of years, we move from design phase to the first design win, and we are talking already about big volume and a couple of millions. ID card on Cyber, so 4 years old. As you know, you don't, let's say, you're not building a chip, you're not in the, let's say, semiconductor, if you're not coming from another places. So most of my guys are former, let's say, either expert in the semiconductor business, and you will see the portfolio later on. We have ST, Nokia, Marvell, NXP, Intel, Infineon on board. So funded by the EU, that's what we just discussed. The Series A we announced a couple months ago. It's a mix of equity coming from EU, so EIC, EIB, and France 2030, French Extra Renting, which is a big fund focused on strategic investment. ARM. So ARM is one of, let's say, corporate investors, and Atos Evident, which is, let's say, the largest European supercomputer makers, is on board also. So with ARM as investors, you bet that we work on ARM architecture, and so far we are very happy to do it. And the business model we have is that we ship to server makers or supercomputer makers, and themselves they ship to supercomputer centers. How we set up today, so with the, let's say, new recruitment this week, we are close to 170. Now we're 600 centers. Over 100 centers are going to be open in the next weeks or months, starting with another spot in South Europe, because the key point for what we do is to recruit as soon as, let's say, as fast as possible. With all the subcontractors which are helping us in multiple places, we have more than 200 engineers working on this design. I'll go to the team quite quickly. One point to note is that, as I said, let's say we are veterans of industry. My CTO, YC manage more than 35 tape outs, and part of them with me. The European consortium we discussed, and also that's one of the secret sauce of what we're building. We're used to say that Europe is throwing lots of money in research, in consortium, without anything out of it. Yeah, from time to time that's the case, but this time it worked well, because out of EPI there's plenty of values. Solutions based on ARM, solutions based on RISC-V at accelerator level, IPs, test chips, etc. And Cyber for the ARM-based processor. The interest of such a consortium, you can see here, is that you have research entities, you have direct customer, and you have also the indirect customer and the supercomputing centers. From France, like CA, from Spain, like BSC, and other places. That's why it's almost self-sufficient. It does not mean that we are going to ship only to this consortium, but to start, it's perfect, because all the partners on board are helping you first to design or to co-design, to use a European term, or to ensure that the chip you are building will perfectly target the market. So you don't have any issues in terms of go-to-market, finding the first customer. The first customers are built in, and this was our case. And even more than this, customers and partners have helped us to do the design. For instance, in verification, we have multiple resources coming from an academic partner in Croatia, and this has been quite beneficial. The way to do it at this level, you have multiple partners. So ARM, of course, because developing a processor from scratch. If you want to do it in less than 4 years, which is our case, you cannot rebuild everything and build an ecosystem that flies, and that's the case with ARM. You may have noticed in the past, let's say, past weeks and months since ARM IPO, that ARM is pushing a lot in the data center and the HPC ecosystem, and it's fine for us because what we do is based on ARM. Synopsys, Mentor, Siemens for the IP and the emulation. We go back to it, and ONSYS for the silence. Now, after I said, we are talking about European project, but if you want to manufacture on 6 nanometer and later on 3 nanometer, today the only solution which makes sense when you're a startup is TSMC. So we're looking forward for a fab in Europe to sustain our, let's say, activity, but I'll go back to this later. So it's a message for you, please do it in Bagdebo. We need it. But we are fine with TSMC in the meantime. And also the supercomputing is a complex ecosystem. You need CPUs, you need GPUs or accelerators, you need high-class customer, high-class partners. So that's why for this we are working with Evident, so Atos Bull for the former name, HPE, of course, which is number one worldwide. And you will have seen in the press that we have announced multiple partnerships with the best GPUs on the market, because today you cannot build a computing platform if you don't have CPU and GPUs. So we spend lots of time with Intel, NVIDIA, Graphcore, and AMD to ensure that our, let's say, system, which is quite open, can be shipped with most of them. Before, let's say, discussing the technology and the way we discuss, let's say, the way we design it, you need to have an idea of what's going on in Europe in terms of deployment of supercomputers. The funny part is that this week you have the main trade show, which is so-called Supercomputing in Denver, and the new ranking of the machine, top 500, has been published this morning, in fact yesterday night. So my communication team had to repeat part of the slides with an update of the ranking. So if you go to top500.org, you will see the updated one. So now we are proud in Europe to have a couple, let's say, key machines, like Lumi in Finland, more than 300 billion calculations per second. If I remember well, this one is made by HPE and with AMD chips. We have another one which has been switched on a couple of maybe 1 year ago now in Italy, Leonardo, which was a big event there, knowing the cost of such a machine. So number 5. So in the top 500, we have already the number 5 and the number 6, which was not the case before. So these are public information. It is easy to find on the top 500, which means that part of the effect of this, let's say, open budget and USPC is that in terms of ranking, the open machines are, let's say, getting up, and you have now more than 143 machines in the top 500 compared to 97 before the USPC, and more to come, especially with, let's say, Jupyter next year. Other plans in mind to increase the score of the local computing, as I said, especially Jupyter, which will be the first exascale machine in 2024, followed by the French one, Jules Verne, in 2025 or 2026. If you sum up the total budget of this machine, it's quite huge, and we are talking about billion euros of computing needs, plus of course the power to supply them. But now, thanks to this, Europe is, let's say, no longer in the back and starting to catch up. This for public machine. Why public machine? Because today a private entity or the private entities in Europe, they cannot afford such, let's say, such budget, talking about 300 to 500 million euros for machine. But in terms of private entities, especially the one focused on oil and gas, energy, and here you see for Volkswagen, for BMW and others, they have their own supercomputers, maybe for, let's say, simulation, cross simulation, or 3D designs, and there are multiple spots in Europe managing this. Now, another way to see it, if you follow the trend and the market curve in terms of need for supercomputing for AI, including machine learning, ChatGPT related system, in something like 20 years from now, and that's the link with the issues in terms of, let's say, power. In something like 20 years from now, the full planet will not provide enough energy to supply the machine. So sooner or later, we'll hit roadblock for it. That's why it has to be designed with energy savings in mind, compelling architecture, and of course going to, let's say, very advanced process to limit the cost of energy per switch. So top 500, that's the score to rank the machine in terms of raw power, but there is another one, which is the green 500, and here you start to see that the density of computation, we are talking about gigaflop per watt, is important. Because if you provide, let's say, lots of computing, but if you are consuming too much energy, at the end it doesn't fly. And this could be, let's say, the limit of the ChatGPT system, as you know. The good point is that Europe, in terms of top 500, if you see the performances of this Alastra machine, which is in Montpellier, I guess, which is number 3, and this machine in Lumi, which is number 7 in the green 500, the performances per watt are not bad. And I said, thanks to the good architecture, the good silicon process, we are able to make it. So now you understood that we have to do this in Europe, let's say as far as we can, which means that building teams, building expertise. European companies, let's say 20 years ago, the telecom, Wi-Fi, 2G, etc., were quite compelling. After we had a kind of free fall, and maybe let's say US companies took it over. Here we are trying to catch up because we need this for health, which is medical research, vaccine, and as you know, climate and climate modeling, energy, goes from energy grids to nuclear simulation that we'll see it after. So AI from machine learning to Gen AI, energy engineering, it's every kind of simulation from digital twin to 3D simulation to aerospace simulation, what Airbus is doing, and of course every kind of cybersecurity related to defense or to defense. To do it, to give you an idea of the public statement in terms of chip architecture for the first one that will hit. It has been later than expected, to be honest, but let's say the access to cache in our case has been very complex, but finally we made it. Here we are talking about big dies, chiplet based, because in the same package, a package like this size, we are embedding our own dies plus HBM memory. HBM, high-bandwidth memory, the interest of having HBM in the package. So of course, it's quite expensive, but the throughput in between the main die, which is doing the computing, and the memory is very, very fast and very power, let's say, efficient, much more better than having access to external DDR5. We are still working with DDR5, of course, but the deal is to concentrate most of the computing within the package. So in between all the ARM cores we have in the main die and the multiple entities of HBM which are in the package. And this kind of architecture will be very efficient also for ChatGPT and Gen AI, because the full inference database can be loaded within the package. Because when you have 64 gigabytes of memory in one package, you can easily stuff in a database of 32 or 48 gigabytes, which is today what an LLM model is using. So I'm not going to describe all the specification because that's not the key point here. But to give you an idea, compared to other design you may manage, we're talking about a TDP from 250 watts to 400 watts. It looks big, but if you check the roadmap of what, let's say, will happen on the market in the next 2 years to 5 years, we'll have, let's say, per chip from 1 kilowatt to 2 kilowatts. So it's going to be, let's say, a different class of design. And that's this chip which got this design win for the machine in Germany, the GPU. So, in terms of differentiating factor for this level of technology design in Europe, so as we see, it's ARM-based, V1 based, that's the core that, let's say, big and well-known US player developing cloud solution has made his own chip based on the same technology. I said the key point in this ecosystem to be open, because there are multiple technology providers, and having a CPU that can manage most of the GPUs and accelerator on the market, that's quite key instead of it's a proper Excel solution. And that's what we announced with most of the GPU vendors and soon with quantum computing, because quantum computing is a form of acceleration. It's not silicon-based, or not traditionally, let's say, silicon-based, but it's a form of acceleration which we have to work with, let's say, multiple CPUs. And the key point, and this works when you're, let's say, working on ARM architecture, which is coming from the smartphone business, is the energy efficiency you have, let's improve the instruction set. High-bandwidth memory, that's what we just discussed with the HBM on board. And in terms of computing, you have also some other parameters in terms of internal bandwidth. For this class of design, you need to manage terabytes of data per second, which have to move from one core to another one, or from one core to the memory. Also, what we have not discussed here, why it has to be made in Europe. The interest of designing this in Europe, we can give to the authorities the confidence and the guarantee that 100% of the code is under control. So everything can be audited. So, which means that it's probably not bug-free, which is impossible at this level of complexity, but at least it's backdoor-free. That's a big change in terms of the open culture and access to the technology. So, sovereignty, high performance, energy efficiency, flexibility to work with multiple accelerators, and backdoor-free security. When you have access to this kind of components, you know what is inside. Sampling in 2024. Now, a snapshot on to give you an idea of the complexity of this machine we just won. So the Jupiter that will be set up in Jülich Supercomputing Center, so close to Iran. This machine is a mix of GPU, that's the part that NVIDIA will fulfill. CPU, that's the one we are managing. Close to 200 million euros of budget, equivalent to 10 million of laptops, which are, let's say, working together. 4 telescopes for the surface and the square meters used, and more than 250 kilometers of wiring, high-performance cabling, optical connections, so it's huge in terms of design. And they are just today building the land where the machine will be set up. So in terms of logistics, that's as complex as a data center, including the power supply to manage it. Now, we are between designers, so you care about the design flow, and let's say a couple tricks about the way we are, let's say, working on it. Virtual prototyping, that's key when you're building this class of chip. So we are using external IPs coming from ARM over players, or the one we develop ourselves, with requirements in terms of architecture and specification. And the key point, and that's we spend our let's say, first years when we are limited in terms of resources and computing space, working with virtual prototyping. So part of the VP were coming from ARM, so the one we developed. Thanks to this, we have been able to manage functional verification and simulation, and it's still the case today. So knowing the cost of a tape-out and the fact that a second revision will cost us 12 months, we have no choice, so we have to spend the max in simulation, especially for the software. So it means that with this level of testing, part of the software up to Linux level, OS level, can work in simulation. And if you check what happens at, let's say, platform level, so of course within such a chip you have multiple class of IPs, multiple class of cores. We are not going necessarily depending on the phase of the design and which part of the software has to be tested, to switch on all the cores in simulation, but it's really a question of case by case basis to do it. So some IPs may be simulated at RTL level, some others may be let's say simulated at system C level, but what matters is that at the end it works. So I said we spend lots of time in simulation with VP for this, and we are now moving to another stage, which is hardware simulation, and you will have an idea of a couple of photos which are unique in Europe, with multiple configuration of the chip, starting for, let's say, boot level, starting to second configuration where the full chip is fully loaded, after you have one with, let's say, high performance mode for the stress test, up to so-called B-socket, because for the one used to motherboards on the server, in most of the cases you have two processors talking together, connected to an high bandwidth PCI interface, and we are able today to emulate two chips like this with a dedicated emulator. So the configuration we have chosen is based on Mentor Siemens Veloce. We have a setup which is really unique in Europe, that you see the photos here. So this has been caught in our data center was 3 weeks ago when they started to extend the machine. So today, thanks to this, and with the, let's say, high density 128 boards we have, we can emulate 4 billion gates, so we can emulate 2 full chips. And so we are not yet at this level of performances, but in theory it should run at, let's say, 1000x the speed. So basically 3 megs in terms of 3 gigahertz. So that's a huge tool. Of course, it's over expensive. We think that we have today an emulation class which is unique in Europe. That's the price to pay to develop this level of technology. And let's say most of our design and simulation strategy is now based on this, which is not rocket science. Let's say most of the CPU or GPU designers are following the same trend. To finish, so let's say to develop this class of processor, you need to be, of course, let's say well connected in Europe and be, let's say, involved in multiple projects. There are multiple projects behind EPI which are focused on technologies for cloud, European if possible, like IO, Riser, OpenCube. Syntax Excellence, which is a way, let's say, for industrial partners to work with research centers. You have COE for, let's say, every class of technology. In our case, we have Accelera, Max, and Plasma, and part of the team is involved with this, let's say, with multiple academics, including other projects not at European level in France and in Germany with Flexable, which is also a way to attract engineers to, let's say, to leave research and to start working in the industry. So we'll discuss a lot about European business. We are talking about Europe, of course, for the first market, but when you have, let's say, worldwide class level processor and especially with good power savings, Europe is, let's say, not enough. The ambition is to ship worldwide, and we always already interest in Asia and even in the US, because there are not so many. In fact, there is today one processor design, it's ARM-based for supercomputers. The others are servers, which are, sorry, chips which are much more developed for servers and data centers. What's the next step? So HPC today, it's a market, but knowing the cost and the complexity of designing this class of chips, so this market in 5 years from now will be no longer self-sufficient, which means that the cost of design of such components will not be back up if a market large enough, and we'll have to address something else like on top of this, like data center. You have been posted probably about the rise of sovereign cloud in Europe, the fact that they are trying to develop their own technologies, so today in terms of software, in terms of, let's say, sovereign data center up to building level, and a processor when this will be available. Because here there's the same issue. There are plenty of very good components which are not in Europe, but in terms of computing, it's edge, it's IoT, it's microcontrollers, but not at the class yet of supercomputers or microprocessors to address this class of components. And so-called data center edge, that's all the computing system for passive coolings, with passive coolings, which could be used in infrastructure. So around the world, so for CDG baseband station, for everything related to ADAS and autonomous drive. Because for this, before sending back the data to the cloud, you need to have first the processing in the car, second in the edge, and after only the information will be back to the cloud. Two messages to finish. So yeah, it's basically a hint on the factory. So today we are able to design lots of stuff in Europe. Now we even start to find cash in Europe, and the European Chips Act is helping a lot for it. The message is that to ensure that foundry players like TSMC, Intel, IFS will finally set up very good fab. By good I mean fabs focused on very fine nodes beyond 5 nanometers, to ensure that this fab will be in Europe. We need products to fill up this fab. So today for 3 nanometer, there are not so many candidates who are part of them, but even with a business plan fully loaded, will only account for, let's say, even maybe 1% or 2% of the fab. So it's a message to everybody, so build products, build startups, build products to ensure that at the end, a fab in Europe will make much more sense. And last word in front of engineers. So I told you that we are close to 170. We need to recruit more than 200 persons next year, on top of what we have already. France, Germany, Spain, other countries will be open in Eastern Europe in South Europe, even in UK, we have the ambition to go 24,000 days, so it means Asia and North America. So thanks for that.